Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. More than 200 trucks filled with aid supplies are still waiting to roll into the Gaza Strip, bringing much-needed aid to the war-torn region. Lethbridge MP Rachel Thomas called out the CBC for not referring to Hamas as terrorists and for what she says is misinformation by the public broadcaster. And the Canadian Taxpayers Federation blasted a Liberal-appointed senator. We will explain why.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Satellite photos show a long convoy of more than 200 trucks filled with humanitarian aid are waiting to cross the border from Egypt to the Gaza Strip. The trucks are loaded with food, water, and medicine intended to bring some relief to those who've been living under an Israeli blockade since the October 7th terrorist attack by Hamas in southern Israel. The United Nations is appealing for the quick movement of aid to the Palestinians. Israel's defense minister talked about the country's long-term plans, saying it does not envision taking control of the Gaza Strip after an expected ground offensive to root out Hamas terrorists. A survivor of the October 7th kibbutz attack in Israel talks about the harrowing experience of that deadly offensive launched by Hamas.
200 militants just storming inside the kibbutz, shooting everywhere. Anybody who try to peek his head out of the safe room or try to run. You can see some of the burned houses. They burned the houses while the people were inside, so the people come out. And the people who came out are the people who got kidnapped, killed, executed, slaughtered, whatever.
There's word now we're receiving reports that an American mother and her child who were taken hostage by Hamas have since been released. The White House says Israel would potentially receive $14.3 billion in assistance under its funding request to Congress. The majority of the money would go towards Israeli air and missile defense systems. U.S. President Joe Biden is requesting to move the legislation urgently to deepen his country's support for its allies. Upwards of $60 billion from the total $105 billion request will also go towards supporting Ukraine in its war with Russia. Biden says the aid for both Israel and Ukraine is vital to U.S. security.
Hamas and Putin represent different threats, but they share this in common. They both want to completely annihilate a neighboring democracy, completely annihilate it. I know these conflicts can seem far away, and it's natural to ask, why does this matter to America? So let me share with you why making sure Israel and Ukraine succeed is vital for America's national security. You know, history has taught us that when terrorists don't pay a price for their terror, when dictators don't pay a price for their aggression, they cause more chaos and death and more destruction. They keep going, and the cost and the threats to America and the world keep rising.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is reiterating Canada's commitment to a two-state solution in the context of the Israeli-Hamas war. Trudeau says both the Middle East and the rest of the world need Israel and a Palestinian state to coexist in peace, prosperity, and safety. He has not outlined what Canada would like to see for Gaza once Israel finishes its operations weeding out the terrorist group Hamas.
Canada remains firm and steadfast in our commitment to a two-state solution. The world and the region needs a peaceful, safe, prosperous, viable Palestinian state alongside a peaceful, prosperous, democratic, safe Israeli state, Israel. This is something that we have always called for. It is something we will continue to work for every day as we move forward.
Lethbridge MP Rachel Thomas says the CBC needs to be held to account. She says over $1 billion taxpayer dollars is propping up Canada's public broadcaster, which refuses to call Hamas a terrorist organization. Thomas also says the CBC reported that it was an Israeli missile which hit a hospital in Gaza, killing hundreds of people, when in fact, new information revealed that it was a Hamas missile which misfired and then hit a medical facility.
The CBC just recently ran with a story accusing Israel of the attack on a hospital. They did not verify the facts. They did not take the time to get the story correct. Instead, they just took information that was fed to them by Hamas and they pushed it out the door. Only moments later, they then had to retract the title of their story and misleading information within it because they had new information. and because Canadians held them accountable and pushed back on their lies. But for a public broadcaster to take over $1 billion and use that taxpayer money to propagate a false narrative fed by Hamas is absolutely deplorable.
The city of Edmonton says its famous high-level bridge will be boasting the colors of the Palestinian flag until the end of the day today. In a post on X, formerly known as Twitter, city officials wrote from October 19th to the 20th, the high-level bridge will be lit in red, white, black, and green to acknowledge the humanitarian crisis and all people struggling as a result of the violence and conflict in Gaza. Last week, the city lit up the bridge as well in blue and white in support of Israel. Federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says the lack of competition is driving up prices for so many products and services in our country. He made reference to the Competition Bureau's report, which says the lack of competition hasn't been this bad in 20 years. He says under the Trudeau government, things are just getting worse for Canadians.
Now the Liberal government is considering allowing Canada's biggest bank gobble up the 7th biggest bank to eliminate competition and force up mortgage rates on Canadians who already can't afford to pay their bills. Will the government side with consumers and home buyers instead of corporate oligarchs and big banks and block this merger?
As the Conservative leader recycles common sense cliches from decades ago, like an automaton from the Mike Harris era, our government has taken decisive action to help Canadians with the price of groceries by supporting more competition in the marketplace and by increasing housing supply by waiving GST on new rental construction. These are two significant measures the members opposite can support right now by supporting the government's bill on affordability, but they've stated that they won't support that. Can someone from the opposition benches please explain to all of us how voting against measures that are going to substantially help middle-class families, how is that common sense?
The Canadian Taxpayers Federation says a bill to extend a carbon tax exemption for farmers is being delayed. They say the culprit is Senator Pierre Delphond. Bill C-234 would exempt those in our agriculture sector from paying a carbon tax on natural gas and propane used on farms. The federal director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, Franco Terrazzano, joins us now from Ottawa with more of the details. Franco, what's the holdup?
Well, the holdup is that unelected Senator Pierre Delphond is making your eggs, bread, and milk more expensive. Okay, members of Parliament did the right thing and passed Bill C-234 to remove the carbon tax on farm fuels like natural gas and propane that farmers need to dry their grain and heat their barns. But this unelected Senator Pierre Delphond is employing stall tactics. He's delaying the passage of this bill in the Senate by adding an amendment to the bill. So here's the thing. Maybe Pierre Delphond, with his $170,000 a year taxpayer-funded salary, can afford to wait, but Canadians can't afford to wait for their grocery prices to go down. Canadians need prices to come down now, and that means that the unelected Senator Pierre Delphond needs to stop using these delay tactics and let the Senate pass this bill now.
Thanks so much, Franco. That was Franco Terrazzano, federal director of the CTF, joining us from Ottawa. The trial involving former Freedom Convoy organizers Tamara Leach and Chris Barber continues in our nation's capital. Barber and Leach are facing charges for their role in bringing many big rig trucks and other supporters to Ottawa to protest the COVID-19 public health measures, along with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government. Eva Chipiuk, an Edmonton lawyer with Empowered Canadians, has been following this trial closely, and she says something odd transpired this week during testimonies.
There was another police officer that was giving evidence. And one of the things that came up, which was a bit strange, is all of the messages that she had on her Signal phone messages went away. And so there was a lot of investigation into who asked for that. Was there an upgrade on the phones or what was going on? So that's been a little bit of a hot button issue, and I don't think it's been resolved yet, but it's very curious to see that some very key messages have just disappeared from the police officers because there's an obligation on them to preserve evidence, and certainly this would be evidence.
A Fort Macleod town councillor who was charged during the Coutts border blockade last year is speaking out in support of the Coutts Four who've been in jail and not received bail for more than a year and a half. Marco Van Hugenbaugh says it appears as though the four are being held as political prisoners.
I believe that these men not getting bail, and that bail is denied once and twice for some of these men is a political decision. There's political influence and political interference to make an example, and I believe there's a bigger, I wouldn't call it a conspiracy, but there's a bigger picture at play here that ties back to the Emergencies Act, the implementation of the Emergencies Act.
Marco Van Hugenbos will also discuss his plight as he too faces charges for his involvement in the Coutts border blockade. Catch that full interview coming up later in our broadcast. Well, we had clouds mixed with sunshine today in Lethbridge and slightly cooler. Jeanette Rocher is now with an early peek at the forecast. Jeanette, it looks like we may have kind of a mixed bag this weekend.
Oh, a mixed bag is right, Hal. We're headed from above seasonable temperatures today and tomorrow into single digits and then negative digits. But first of all, we're looking at an overnight low of 5 degrees, 16 for a high on Saturday. Not too bad. Then rain Saturday night. As we get into Sunday and Monday, that's where we're going to start to see those single digits with rain. And then after that, negative and the possibility of snow. Like, what is going on? Looks like it's time to put away the bicycles and golf clubs and exchange them for what? Winter boots and snow shovels? Not cool at all. The good news is that snow is not going to last long. I'll be back later in the show to tell you about next week's forecast.
Thanks so much, Jeanette. The province announced that the Alberta government and Ottawa are providing $165 million to support livestock producers affected by drought and extreme growing conditions. Through the Joint Agri-Recovery Initiative, the fence will be providing $99 million and the province will be pitching in with $66 million. Agriculture Financial Services Corporation will be doling out the funding. Alberta Agriculture Minister R.J. Sigurdsson says the province has the backs of the producers.
These funds will help them manage extraordinary costs and cover losses incurred for managing and maintaining breeding herds for grazing animals. For example, eligible producers could receive up to $150 per head for the breeding animals they have as of December 31st. Applications will close on January 15th. However, eligible expenses can be claimed up to March 31st of 2024. This program applies to the critical drought areas in the province using a feed need model. For more information, please visit afsc.ca.
MLA Sigurdsson says it's very important to protect producers' livelihoods while they continue to put food on the table for Albertans. Lethbridge West MLA and the finance critic for the Alberta NDP is calling for an investigation into the province's pension consultation process. Shannon Phillips says she has written to the Alberta Ombudsman and that Albertans are being denied procedural fairness. Phillips says the province's survey does not ask Albertans if they want to withdraw from the Canada Pension Plan, but instead possible design features for an Alberta pension plan. Phillips says the NDP has received tens of thousands of complaints from Albertans concerned about potentially withdrawing from the CPP.
So in all, on CPP, 88.39% of Albertans responding to our survey do not support leaving the CPP. We asked a very simple question. Do you want to leave the CPP? They don't want the UCP gambling with their retirement security. Now, these are all unique respondents and have all provided an Alberta address and either an email address or a phone number or both. We've also found a great many Albertans understand the risks of leaving the CPP. They know what the stakes are here. They know that, and they are wise to the phony numbers being peddled by Danielle Smith.
Now, in a recent conversation with Bridge City News, Premier Danielle Smith says before the province even thinks about moving forward with a referendum on potentially pulling out of the CPP for an Alberta-made initiative, more research needs to be done.
Our first town hall had 12,000 people on it, and we're continuing to get feedback coming in from all sources on the website through our survey. We'll have a pretty good idea of whether Albertans want it to go to a vote, and I'll let the panel finish their work. They're going to report back to us in May, and we'll know what the path forward is at that point.
The City of Lethbridge is hosting a community conversation next Monday at the NMAC Centre. It's a chance for residents to give their feedback and learn about what's happening here in our community. Some of the things you'll be able to chat about include the animal bylaw, the new playground harmonization project, and changes to snowplow routes.
It's a really exciting opportunity for residents. It makes it a lot easier for residents to participate in a lot of different community engagement opportunities. It's one night in one place, so you can get a lot of information just by showing up for one topic. You might find yourself finding information about other topics too. The event is set up in a trade show style. So on the concourse we have our 40 different projects, and you can go around to all of the different and gather all the different information there.
The community conversation will run from 3 until 7 p.m. Monday at the NMAC Centre. Over 80% of respondents say they are satisfied with the Lethbridge Police Service. Now that's according to the Lethbridge Police 2023 Community Survey. It was completed over the summer, and information from residents was collected based on their perceptions of the LPS. Around 14%, however, say they were dissatisfied with the service. Police Chief Shaheen Medizadeh says a lot of the dissatisfaction from residents has to do with what's going on here in our city and others.
We are not the only community. When you look at opioid crisis, drug issues, homelessness, and some of the stuff that actually make the community feel less safe in their own city contribute to those. But we've also heard from the citizens some of the issues have to do with response time for some calls from the police service. And obviously we are trying to recruit people and get our resources up to par. And we have many efforts on that front.
Chief Medizadeh says property and drug crime are some of the top policing priorities right now. Lethbridge County has re-elected Tory Campbell as Reeve of Division 2, which means he will serve in that position until October of next year. Campbell has been on council since 2017 and is now in his second term and third year as Reeve. When asked about what his focus will be for this term, Campbell says the concerns of water and wastewater are on the top of the list.
Just addressing the needs. Obviously, we rely heavily on the city of Lethbridge through their potable wastewater treatment plant, and as the city has grown and as the region has grown as a whole, the stress on that plant has grown. Obviously, we've seen this year, with the drought conditions, just what the how important it is to be really keen on what our source water is and how we're utilizing that resource. So I think you've seen us come together with municipalities throughout the region from, Lethbridge, Coalhurst, heading east towards Medicine Hat. How can we address this from a regional perspective?
And still with Lethbridge County, John Kurbis was elected as Deputy Reeve of Division 4. A very spooky event is on now until Halloween evening in Lethbridge. The Field of Screams is being hosted at Spitz Stadium, home of our baseball team, the Lethbridge Bulls. The event is a fundraiser for the Prairie Baseball Academy Scholarship Fund and in support of the Interfaith Food Bank. One of the organizers of the event, Lorian Johansson, shows BCN's Jeanette Rocher what people can expect to see.
I was in the dark clubhouse yesterday just trying to get some supplies, and that was spooky enough for me, and I had a flashlight. So yeah, no thank you.
It's like it was creepy enough, and there weren't even the actors in there.
None at all.
Or you were mentioning there's like, is it lights and stuff?
We have lights, and we have motion detectors, and we have sound, and we have ambient noises, and we've got live people jumping out, and just the animatronics was enough for me, and I was out of there so fast.
Sounds like a lot of fun. Catch the full immersive experience with Lorian Johansson from Spitz Stadium and BCN's Jeanette Rocher coming up later in our broadcast. Well, we had kind of a cooler day here today in Lethbridge, and it appears as though over the next few days, the mercury will be dropping even more. A full look at the weather forecast, including the long-range outlook, is on deck. It was nice that we had double-digit temperatures again today, but slightly cooler than we've been experiencing the past couple of days. Jeanette Rocher is now with all of the weather details. Jeanette, it appears as though the mercury may be plummeting over the next 4 to 5 days, and we may want to even consider putting some winter tires soon on our vehicles here in southwestern Alberta.
So are we saying that the Farmer's Almanac is right then, Hal? That we're going to see an early winter? Because I don't know if I can bear that. I can't even think about it right now because we're sitting in summer-like conditions right here, and that temperature is about to drop. But you're right about the winter tires. I need 4 of them, and That's something that I don't want to think about either. It's going to be very expensive. Okay, we're looking at a high of 16 degrees tomorrow on Saturday. That's above average. We're going to see some rain developing on Saturday evening. That's going to stick around Sunday and Monday. And look at that temperature drop right there. Down to the single digits. High of 7 on Sunday, 9 degrees on Monday. We're going to drop even further on Tuesday and Wednesday down to those negatives. -2 on Tuesday, -3 on Wednesday. We could see that snow and flurries sticking around for a couple of days there. And then after that, Thursday, we are seeing the sunshine again. We're going to see partly cloudy skies. High of 1 degree. I mean, you know, that's better than the negatives. So the good news is, as I was looking into the 14-day forecast, is that the temperature is going to actually rise a little bit as we get further past Halloween and whatnot. So that's good news. Average high for this time of year, 13 degrees. Average low, -1. The high temperature on this day was 26 degrees. That happened back in 1940. And we reached our record low for this day back in 1984. It was sitting at -11, 8:01. That's when the sun rose this morning. Sunset this evening at 6:31, giving us exactly 10 hours and 30 minutes of daylight. Over on the west coast, we're seeing cloudy conditions in Victoria, high of 15 degrees, 14 for a high in Vancouver. Overcast skies, light winds, except in the Georgia Strait, we could see winds up to 30 kilometers per hour. 11 degrees for a high in Edmonton with increasing clouds in the morning. Mix of sun and cloud in Calgary tomorrow, and a high of 11 degrees with a 20k wind. As we get into the rest of the prairies, mainly sunny conditions across Saskatchewan, looking at high of 10 degrees. In Saskatchewan, we could see increasing clouds later on in the day, though, in Regina after that nice sunny morning they're having there tomorrow. 11 degrees for a high there, 12 for a high in Winnipeg, looking at 60% chance of showers with a 30 to 50k wind. Now in Toronto, same thing with the wind, 30 to 50k wind. We're seeing a 30% chance of showers, though, high of 14 degrees. As we get into the rest of the region here, seeing a lot of rain. We're looking at 10 to 20 millimeters of rain for both Ottawa and Montreal tomorrow. 14 for a high in Ottawa, 16 for the high there, by the way, in Montreal. As we get into the rest of Atlantic Canada, seeing lots of precipitation as well. 60% chance of showers in Fredericton, high of 15 degrees. 18 for a high in Halifax. Not a bad temperature, but looking at 10 to 20 millimeters of rain. Could see the possibility of an afternoon thunder shower there as well. 18 for a high in Charlottetown. Also that 10 to 20 millimeters of rain. Going to see heavy rains there. Temperature sitting steady at 15 degrees tomorrow in St. John's. Seeing 5 millimeters of rain developing in the afternoon along with some fog. And get this, we're seeing wind gusts from 10 to 40 to 50 up to 70 kilometers per hour throughout the day tomorrow in St. John's. So going to be wet and windy one there. There you have it. That is your forecast.
Stats Canada says retail sales slipped 0.1% to $66.1 billion in August. The agency says sales at new car dealers dropped 1.1% and used car dealerships declined 0.5%. It says core retail sales, which exclude gas and parts dealers, dropped 0.3% in August. Stats Canada says its early estimates suggest retail sales were unchanged in September, though it cautions the reading will be revised. The Chief Financial Officer at Transat AT is leaving the company to serve as the new CFO for Dollarama. Transat says Patrick Boy will step down from his position at the travel company on December the 15th. He's expected to remain in his current role through the announcement of Transat's results for its financial year ending October 31st to help ensure a smooth transition. He fills a job left vacant by J.P. Towner, who moved from the discount retailer to become the new CFO at Rona. The United Auto Workers Union in the United States says it will update members soon on progress in talks with Detroit's 3 automakers. Sean Fain says more workers could join the 34,000 already on strike at 6 assembly plants and 38 parts distribution warehouses. The strikes at targeted plants at each company began on the 15th of September. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was down 233 points on the day to finish at 19,115. The Dow was down 286 points to 33,127. The S&P 500 was down 53 on the day to 4224, and the Nasdaq was down 202 to 12,983. West Texas Intermediate Oil was down 62 cents to 88.75 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 4 cents to 2.92 US. Gold was up 7.12 on the day to 1981.57 US an ounce, and silver was also up 33 cents to $23.37 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $9.53 per bushel, barley's at $7.40, canola's at $15.71, and corn is at $8.51 per bushel. Live cattle were down 13 cents to $184.28. Feeder cattle were down $1.75 to $241.83, and lean hogs December contract was down $2 to $66. The Canadian dollar was up slightly over the past 24 hours to $72.92 US. Recapping one of our top stories, Israel could potentially receive $14.3 billion in assistance from the United States under a recent funding request to Congress. The majority of the money would go towards Israeli air and missile defense systems. U.S. President Joe Biden is requesting to move the legislation urgently to deepen his country's support for its allies. Upwards of $60 billion from the total $105 billion request will go towards supporting Ukraine in its war with Russia. The Quds 4 still remain behind bars. Now, the 4 men who took part in the Quds border blockade last year are charged with conspiring to commit murder of police officers. A man who also took part in the protest, Fort Macleod Town Councillor Marco Van Hugenbos, will talk about what the men are going through, plus discuss his own charges momentarily. Listen, when you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. And if you missed any of today's local stories, check out our website, bridgecitynews.ca. It has been over a year and a half since the Quds 4 has seen the light of day. The 4 men accused of conspiring to commit murder of RCMP officers during the Quds border blockade in February of 2022 are still behind bars. None of them have been allowed to post bail. Now, to chat about this in more detail is Marco Van Hugenbos, a Fort Macleod Town Councillor who's also a strong supporter of the Quds 4 and who he himself was charged with mischief over $5,000 during the Quds border blockade. Marco, welcome to Bridge City News.
Al, thanks for having me.
Now, Marco, first of all, where does the situation stand now when it comes to your charges? Your trial is what, coming up in April of next year?
April the 2nd, I believe, is the date that was scheduled in last December. But looking at how some other legal cases have been going through the courts, I wouldn't be surprised if this date gets pushed further back.
Now, you, along with Alex Van Herk, also Fort Macleod, and Gerard Jansen of Tabor, all face charges of mischief over $5,000. If you're found guilty, you could face a maximum of 10 years in prison. How concerned are you with this?
Well, the reality of the charges has come home. It's a serious charge. Like you just mentioned, if convicted, the maximum penalty could be 10 years. I believe the Crown is, they proceeded with direct indictment, I believe, in discussions that have been had, that they're looking for 3 to 4 years. But again, the case is ahead of us, the trial is ahead of us, and of course it would be concerning if I were to speak frankly and in relation to my family. If I go to jail, if I'm convicted and go to jail for any length of time, that would have that would be an extremely difficult situation for myself and my family. But I'll be honest, that's not something we're focused on at this point. We believe, I believe that we have a valid opportunity, and the case and the trial ahead of us will allow us to dispute the charges that have been thrown at us. And it's sort of a stepped approach. At this point, we look to trial, and based on trial, we will reevaluate and look at next steps.
So, Marco, while all of this is going on, are you allowed to continue with your duties as a town councillor in Fort Macleod, or have you had to step aside?
No, I'm allowed to continue. There was complaints leveled against me, but the MGA, the Municipal Government Act, did not have any authority, or did not have any bylaw, or I was not in. I did not contravene the MGA. I have a letter of. I was disciplined with a letter from council in relation to the public role that I did participate in during the Coutts blockade. But as of right now, I'm still a sitting second-term councillor for the town of Fort Macleod.
So can you explain to our viewers, Marco, exactly what you were fighting for during the Coutts blockade?
We were fighting against government overreach. I've said this so many times. The COVID years, the early COVID years, pre-Coutts blockade, we lost the ability to communicate with those who represent us. And to be quite frank, even those who represented us did not have the ability to do that. We were being governed by a PIC committee, by the EMCC Emergency Management Cabinet Committee. And we've now seen in the last month, or I believe it was 5-6 weeks ago, the Ingram decision ruled against the authority that the EMCC had. That's not saying that things would have been different, but we protested and we stood up against a government provincially. Ottawa is a different story. The Freedom Convoy addresses that, but provincially we stood up against a government out of touch and frankly out of control.
Now, looking back at the Coutts border blockade, Marco, would you have done anything differently?
There's a lot of things I would have done differently. This is not something that I've ever done before or have any intention to do again. So there was a lot of decisions that were made in the moment, on the fly, with the limited amount of information or the information we had at that time. In relation to the to things that I would have done different, that's more of a specific question, but I could probably write a book about, you know, a bit of a manual on how to properly engage your government and all that, and what that all entails.
So did you reach out to some of the government officials, like including the MLA, what they had to say?
There was contact with, not necessarily officials, but there was no contact with bureaucracy, but there was contact with MLAs and cabinet ministers. I was in contact with previous transportation minister Rajan Sawhney, I believe twice, but there was never any contact on an official capacity. These would have been cabinet ministers, these would have been MLAs. We know Grant Hunter attended the Coutts blockade. There were others, but there was no official delegation or direction given by the Alberta government, by the Jason Kenney government, to communicate with those in the capacity to represent the Coutts blockade.
Now let's talk about the Coutts Four here, Marco. Chris Carbert, Chris Lysak, Jerry Moore, and Anthony Oleanic. In your opinion, why is it that none of them have been granted bail? They've been behind bars for a year and a half now.
In relation to that, if I take the bail situation on its own, considering how lax the bail system and how dysfunctional the bail system is in Canada, like the statement that everybody gets bail in Canada is not untrue. Obviously, there's situations where a person wouldn't, but largely most people get bail. If we look at minor criminal or petty crime, or what the government or the Crown deems as petty crime, sometimes the offenders make their way back to their community before the enforcement that brings them in makes their way back to a community. At least that's the case in Southern Alberta. I believe that these men not getting bail, that bail is denied once and twice for some of these men, is a political decision. There's political influence and political interference to make an example, and I believe there's a bigger, I wouldn't call it a conspiracy, but there's a bigger picture at play here that ties back to the Emergencies Act, the implementation of the Emergencies Act. As you know, or if you don't know, I was subpoenaed to testify at the commission last November, and what struck me, and I actually had an interview in relation to the commission just recently. So I was thinking about those days and what all happened and the questioning and etc. What struck me, considering the emphasis, and some of this is retroactive based on the report that the commissioner issued this February, based on the report that came out and how Coots was such a key catalyst to the implementation, like the guns and all the details around Coots, how that was such a large catalyst to the implementation of the Emergencies Act. I found it very interesting how little focus Coots received at the commission. I was the only witness that was that testified on the protester side of things. I believe the Attorney General, Deputy Commissioner, the Mayor of Coots, and maybe a few other officials spoke in relation to details, but as an attendee of Coots, I was the only individual subpoenaed. And if we look at Ottawa in comparison, there was 20 or 30 protesters that had a role or that had standing at the commission. So the focus was on Ottawa, rightfully so. Ottawa was a big deal as well. It's the capital city. But considering the rationale for the implementation of the Emergencies Act being Coots, it's interesting how little standing Coots received during the commission.
So, Marco, what do you say to the RCMP who say they have overwhelming evidence against the Coots 4, including 15 firearms that were confiscated, ammunition, and body armor?
At this point, it would be the Crown. I imagine the RCMP would have been involved in that investigation, but I would say to them, present your case. If you have a case, and if it's so cut and dried, what's with the games? What's with the grandstanding? Why the delays? Why are we dragging this out to the point where these men will become eligible for a Jordan application? And to explain on a Jordan application, Jordan versus Canada, I believe there was a case back, I don't know the date, but it established the timelines to a fair and timely trial. And that timeline is 30 months. We are over that halfway mark. And very soon we will approach that deadline. And what I feel may happen due to what's happening in court, pre-trial motions, some of the things in play, and I can't speak to all of that. There's a publication ban, even though I'm not media. I don't want to get in trouble for that. But what I see is happening is that the Crown's case is on shaky ground. That's my observation. I'm no legal expert, but that's my observation. I have the ability to discern that. What I think will happen is they will become eligible for a Jordan application. The Jordan application, and this is just a scenario. The Jordan application will go through the course, and these men will be granted. Their charges will be dropped. There will be outcry, broken justice system, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But these men will never be truly vindicated, and the Crown, if they had a case, won't try their case. And if they actually never had a case, also will never have to answer to the fact that there is a very real chance of Crown and RCMP corruption.
Now, during police interviews, Anthony Oleanic allegedly said that the federal government sought to destroy the middle class, install a communist regime before the start of executions, and use of gas chambers. Those are some very serious accusations, Marco.
I can't speak to Tony's comments or the setting these comments were made in. I do know one thing. At that point in time, not necessarily the Coots blockade, there was a lot of anger at the government. And people want to talk about the Coots blockade, all the other blockades, Emerson, Kingsgate, Ambassador Bridge. They want to talk about the Freedom Convoy. And they want to talk about those days from the start till the end. But nobody wants to talk about why were we there? Why did honest, hardworking Albertans and Canadians go to the extent they did, to the point where they could possibly, where there would be legal ramifications, such as my own charges? Why did law-abiding citizens have to go to that point? That's the real question that isn't being asked. And I feel that until we as a country, as a society ask that question, we're not going to be able to to heal or to move forward from COVID. It's like, you know how trauma works, Hal, right? Trauma gets pushed away, but then trauma can resurface 20, 30 years from now. And I feel that the trauma of COVID, I'm not talking about what mandate was right, what wasn't, but there is real trauma. Look at the mental issues we're facing. Look at the opioid. Look at the drug problems we have in society right now, the homelessness. Look at the consequences, the financial consequences of COVID. That's not me pointing fingers at any one government official. But if we do not come forward as a country, as a society, and address these issues and have these frank, tough conversations, we can't move forward and heal.
So Marco, we only have a few short moments left here, but I wanted to slip in 2 more questions for you. Number 1, have you chatted with any of the men behind bars? How are they and their families holding up?
I chatted with them. I actually chatted with Chris Carver yesterday. I talked to him. I talk to them both weekly and even more than weekly. I go and see them. They're visited. You can see them. They get 2 visitations per week, 1 hour each. But this, you can just imagine how this has affected their families. 3 of these men are dads. We have 7 kids who haven't seen their dads for 18 months. I believe it's 18 months. We have families that have been torn apart. And I'm not here to speak to the details of their charges, the details of their cases, what they said, all that. I'm not the judge, I'm not the jury. But where is the justice in this? Justice delayed is justice denied. And in relation to Bill, these men had no priors. These men are not a threat to society. There's so many measures we could take to allow these men to be with their families. It's almost like, how do we expect these kids to integrate into society considering what they're going through? You know, kids need their dads. And their families, it's been extremely stressful. Like it's I can't put it into words.
Let's talk about the support the Coots 4 have received by many here in Southern Alberta and beyond. There was a convoy of around 235 vehicles in January of this year by those showing a lot of their support for the Coots 4. What other support have they received?
They've received tremendous support. There are. It took a while for the story to get out. Even for myself, I assumed that the system would, they would be eligible for bail and they would just work their way through the system like I am. And then that never happened, and that's where it got my attention. And it took a while before it became mainstream. There's a lot of large accusations against them, so the public was reluctant at first to get behind them. But what's happening to them right now is so unfair that most people, regardless of their views of it, know there's something wrong. And the support that has come out of that is tremendous. There's individuals such as Granny McKay, who's an advocate for them. There's a Twitter show, Political Prisoners, under Jason Levine, or it's not Twitter, it's on Rumble. It's the Jason Levine show that in depth shares their content. The Coots 4 is no longer a rural, small, or a Southern Alberta rural story. It's become a national and even international story. And with that, I believe that's a phenomenal, that's phenomenal success for those who have made that possible, but also for the 4 men. That's what we need. There has to be accountability, and there has to be accountability brought back into our judicial system.
Marco, thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks, Hal. Thanks for having me on.
That was Marco Van Hugenbos, Fort Macleod Town Councillor and one of the protesters from the Coots border blockade crossing during the pandemic of February of 2022, and a big supporter of the Coots 4.
Well, it is that spooky time of year when we start to see pumpkins on doorsteps, costumes in stores, and a lot of spooky things around town, including where we are standing right here. It's actually pretty spooky behind me. We are at Spitz Stadium, home of the Lethbridge Bulls, And joining me is Lorian Johansson with Spitz Stadium. And we're going to talk about this really fun fundraiser event, Halloween event coming up soon. It's actually running for the rest of October. Field of Screams. Lorian, I want to hear all about Field of Screams. What is it?
Field of Screams is the fundraising event for Halloween for the Prairie Baseball Academy, which is our collegiate level baseball players educational program here in Lethbridge. So they are doing their training facilities throughout the winter time on the off season, and this is just one of the ways that they get involved in the community. They learn event management, they learn project management, and they also do a little bit of fundraising for their own academy as well as the Interfaith Food Bank.
Okay, yeah, fabulous. So it's a fundraiser. What exactly is it? What can the community find when they come here?
This is our haunted house. This is our spooky baseball stadium. This is coming in and getting your pants scared off, if you like, and then enjoying some lovely concession and beverages, but it's a really great family activity. Just come in and have a little Halloween fun.
Okay, so it's a haunted house, so it's something that people walk through, right?
It is. It's a walk-through experience. So you start at one end, you walk through the course, you experience all of the different vignettes, all of the different actors, all of the different stages that we've set, and then you end up in your final resting place for some fun after the scare.
I don't know. Does that sound like a final resting place? Maybe, maybe not. You mentioned actors, so of course that means there's going to be some scary looking dudes, right? Popping out and maybe scaring people?
There will be. We have some hidden alcoves where people will leap out and scare at you. We have actors of all kinds that are going to be wandering through the course, hiding in locations, definitely trying to enact certain scary scenes. It's going to be fantastic.
Okay, so we might see a little bit of Freddy, a little bit of Jason, a little bit of Mike Myers.
A little bit of those ones, and we might see some, your standard scary Halloweens. We've got witches and werewolves and mad doctors and electric chairs and all kinds of fun stuff.
Okay, it sounds like quite the production, and I believe you mentioned the baseball players. They are actually involved in this, aren't they? Some of the actors as well?
They are our actors. They've also been working on building the entire course and the experience.
Wow.
So there's been construction and decorating, but then they are going to be taking their places as our scare actors throughout the course of the entire event.
Okay, and the event begins October 20th right through Halloween night, right?
That's correct. So it runs from the 20th through the 31st. On Fridays and Saturdays, it's from 6:30 until 11 p.m. On the other nights, it is until 9:30. And then we have extended hours for Halloween night, so you can go trick-or-treating and then top it off with a spooky baseball stadium haunted house experience and get some more candy.
Now, regarding it being a fundraiser, you mentioned a lot of the proceeds are going to the food bank, which is wonderful. And the players themselves, this is for scholarship, isn't it?
It is. The funds raised for the PBA scholarship program go to support our collegiate athletes as they continue their post-secondary education, and this helps to cover their education fees and their baseball academy fees so that everybody, regardless of financial status, can participate in baseball.
Mm-hmm. What are the ages of these baseball players?
Well, most of them are between 18 and 22, 23, depending on what year of college or university that they're in.
Okay, that's a wonderful opportunity for them to be able to go to school through this, because their lives are so dedicated to baseball, but we all know that in the real world you need real jobs sometimes too. So yeah, they're trying to balance that with school and with playing and everything.
They are. We have baseball players who are doing baseball in the summer seasons, but then they're taking things like finance and accounting. They're taking physiology. They're taking kinesiology. They're taking psychology. There are all kinds of different educational courses and majors, but they all have that baseball player commonality to them, and so it's very much a community.
No, I love that. Okay, so it looks like a fun event. This is the second year, and it's bigger and better this year, right?
It is. We were tasked with making it bigger, better, and badder. So we've doubled the size of the course.
Wow.
We've added more scares, more actors. We've added the concession area, which wasn't available last year, and we hope to continue that growth and development throughout the next 5 to 10 years, so that by the time we get to that 10-year anniversary, it's the whole stadium.
Yeah, definitely. There's a brainchild behind this, right? I believe we saw him back there somewhere. Talk about him a little bit.
This entire experience has come out of the mind of Dave Ankerman and his wife Katie. They have been involved with Little League and baseball for, I want to say, more than 15 years, getting involved on all levels. And they were having a conversation last year with the president and general manager, Kevin Kavame. We want to do something in the off season. Let's extend the season of Spitz Stadium. Why don't we do a Halloween haunted house? And so that's where it was born. And Dave's back this year to do all of the building and the decorating and the creating of the spook. And he's hiding in the clubhouse somewhere, making it scary right now.
Yeah, we saw him back there moving ladders around and stuff, so he's still working right up to this minute.
He will be working straight through, all the way through, and he'll be here every night. He'll be making sure that all of the facilities are in order. He's also going to be one of the actors, and I'm not going to tell you which one.
No, and of course there's a lot of surprises. We don't want to give everything away to our viewers. They just have to come out and kind of experience it themselves, don't they?
Absolutely. It's going to be a really great time, whether you want to just have a great, fun family experience. We have a lot of companies and businesses that are using it as a team building experience.
Oh, that's a great idea.
We have a lot of community groups that are bringing their members out as a fun experience for them. And then just walk up tickets. Anybody who, hey, we've got nothing to do tonight, let's go to a haunted house. We have tickets available at the gate as well.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned community. Was this sort of a collaborative effort as well? You're bringing kind of involving community in this.
We are, and everything that we do here at Spitz Stadium is a community effort, whether it's regular Lethbridge Bulls baseball or things like this. We've had a lot of great sponsors and partners for this event specifically. Challenger Building Supplies, Greg's Distributors, Lialta Building Supplies, McNally Construction, they've all contributed to the building materials for the event. We're working with the Interfaith Food Bank to collect food bank donations to support them going into their busy season. And then they're also benefiting from the 50-50 draw that is a progressive draw through to the 31st. And they're going to benefit from some of the proceeds from that as well.
Okay, fabulous. Is there a charge to get in?
There is. Our ticket prices start at $7.50 for a child, $15 for an adult. We also have family packs. We have ticket packs with concession packs. And then if you do bring a donation for the Interfaith Food Bank, we're going to give you a discount on your ticket price just to make sure that everybody is getting in, everybody is able to afford it, and that we're supporting our partners.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Family friendly, is it or isn't it? Is it too scary for the little guys to come, or can a family bring their 3-year-old, their 5-year-old?
You absolutely can bring children of any age. We do have a sign at the gate. If you wish to request light scaring, let us know at the ticket gate, and our actors would dial it back to be appropriate for your age group. Right. Some of the kids say they want to get scared.
I might have to request that.
Me too, yeah. And some of the little guys say, oh, I really, really, really want to be scared, but they don't mean it.
They don't really mean it.
We're going to leave it up to the parents. You know your kids. If you need a lighter experience, a dialed back experience, all you have to do is ask, and we'll communicate that to our actors.
Okay, no, that's great for anybody to know. What is it about being scared? Why do people love to be scared? I actually don't.
I don't either.
Yeah. You don't, I mean, while you're hosting a haunted house. It's great.
It's much easier to organize during the day than it is to actually go through.
Yeah.
I was in the dark clubhouse yesterday just trying to get some supplies, and that was spooky enough for me, and I had a flashlight. So
yeah,
no thank you.
It's like it was creepy enough, and there weren't even the actors in there.
None at all.
Or you were mentioning there's like, is it lights and stuff?
We have lights, and we have motion detectors, and we have sound, and we have ambient noises, and we've got live people jumping out, and just the animatronics was enough for me, and I was out of there so fast.
No, I'm with you, Lori, and 100%, yes. But I do want to go and check this out, so we might have to bring our cameras in there and just see just how scary this experience can be. And I know that it's daytime, and I know that it's fake, and I'm still probably going to be scared.
It's dark as night in there right now. When you get to the outdoor side of the course, it's a little less. At night, we've got colored ambient lighting and sound and fog, but in the building itself, pitch black.
I don't know. We're not ready, are we? I'm just, I'm scared.
Just to
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
there's a candle in there. I've turned it off about 10 times today, and it keeps going on. Just say it. It might be haunted.
So there's a haunted candle in there.
Oh, the pictures
Great.
going off yesterday.
Okay.
You don't have to do the whole thing.
Okay, we're gonna experience this haunted house.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a little alcove here. Okay. Little cauldron there. Oh God. Okay, that's a ladder. Oh God. She's spooky. So, did that scare you for real? I have a feeling she's gonna move too, like when it's all set up. I'm scared now. Candles. Okay. Freaky pictures that turn into scary looking things. 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. 3, 4, better lock your door. 5, 6. Oh, this is big. I'm glad there's no actors in here because I actually, oh God, there's something scary in there too. Just giving you that warning. She's not as scary when you see her in the light, but in the dark, she's scary. I'm telling you. There's different ways to go here. I don't know if I like this. What's all this now? We've got severed hands and feet. There's more of this. Oh my God. Oh, here we go. I totally get that. Yeah.
There are lots of lights around here, but it's still this one.
Yeah. So there's stuff over there. Freaky people. Lorianne Johansson of Spitz Stadium, thanks so much for having us here to talk all about the Field of Screams. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to welcoming everyone from the community to Field of Screams.
All right, Field of Screams is happening October 20th right through Halloween night, right here at Spitz Stadium, home of the Lethbridge Bowls. I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks so much for watching.